An ICAC investigation into racism within the Northern Territory Police Force handed down its report yesterday, finding no evidence of racism beyond 2015. The investigation uncovered racist mock awards, some of which it deemed too offensive to make public, but concluded there was no use in further investigating the matter. Jeswynn Yogaratnam is the Northern Territory Anti-Discrimination Commissioner and is with me in the studio. Good morning. Thanks for your company. What did you make of this decision by the ICAC?
I think it was a very measured decision, measured in the sense that clearly they noted that it was objectively racist, however, no utility for further investigation only because of instances of where they have not had an opportunity for the police officers to respond. But I think the mere fact that it's been called out to be objectively racist does sort of really placed our commission especially as the right entity to do an independent investigation on the racism aspect of it.
So I want to get to your response, or the way that your organisation, the commission, might be able to respond in a moment. But it struck me that part of this report was saying that there are and have been questions to answer. The way of dealing with it is not so clear-cut though.
Yes, and I think this goes back to the review that was put to our commission, directed by the previous government, where we were asked to look into the broader systemic aspect of discrimination and racism within the anti-police force. And, you know, we were negotiating this with the anti-police force, with Commissioner Murphy, and there was intent to move forward in terms of applying the positive duty obligations in terms of how we deal with race discrimination in the Northern Territory with the anti-police. And
there'll be Territorians and Australians that will be, I'm sure, surprised at this decision of ICAC after seeing and hearing what have come out of coronial inquests and other court cases over even just the last year or two about some of the things, some of the allegations of what was happening in the police force.
Yeah, I think it is surprising when you sort of take note of the findings. I think what is perhaps clear is that there is systemic, there is sort of objective racism within anti-police from that report, and that's clear in relation to what the finding is, but they could not move forward in relation to an investigation. There was no utility for that according to this report because they have not had an opportunity for that due process with the police officers. But it is surprising in the context of not moving forward with a racism review in itself on a systemic aspect, and that's what our commission is interested in, helping the police force in the Northern Territory undertake.
And many would have, I think, thought that a review of that type would have been forthcoming, given the police commissioner, when speaking to me at the Gama Festival a couple of months ago, apologised for racism within the police force.
Yes, and I think there's goodwill in terms of the police commissioner coming forward to work through this process, because they have taken on, an undertaking to comply with their positive duty obligations in terms of eliminating race discrimination within the anti-police force. So this is clearly an opportunity for them to invest with our commission in terms of the future, in terms of how they deal with racism within the anti-police force. But we need to look at this from a systems review perspective. So this report really looks into just the awards itself, which is why I find it odd when there are comments made in the Northern Territory that this report exonerates police from any systemic discrimination. The word systemic, if you look at the report, is not at all found. So to say that it exonerates police from systemic discrimination perhaps is not accurate. And here's where we need to rely on evidence-based and not on popular decision-making in terms of what is actually happening in the context of discrimination within the police sector. And there are good police there, but there are also elements with it from a systems perspective that we need to further explore.
So on that point, it's probably really fair or more accurate to say that this was a specific review on an instance and incident within the police force rather than a holistic view of what's happening and why.
Absolutely. So we can't say that this is the end of it. Like, that this is in relation to the TRG and the awards.
Which is the Tactical Response Group, the elite police force of the northern, or part of the NT Police.
That's correct. And it's just in relation to the awards. It's not in relation to the other systems aspect within police, which, if you read the other reports from the Kelly report before that, which identified there's a need for, cultural change change within the police force. These are things that we need to further investigate, and you can only investigate this through an independent body, not through a police investigation report coming internally. And I know that there's some investment through other people within the police now, for example, Ms. Lil being there, and that's, I think, a welcomed addition to police coming from a First Nations-led perspective. But I think you need an independent agency like the Anti-Discrimination Commission to take that stronger move into a racism review within anti-police from a systems perspective. So looking at retention, promotions, recruitment, and all those other elements that can lead to systemic discrimination within the force.
Is that an investigation that the Northern Territory Human Rights Commissioner and you as Commissioner are leading at the moment?
Well, the previous government had put a commitment to us to the amount of $300,000 to run a police racism review. We did sort of take note that that was insufficient in terms of funding, but we thought we'll do a high-level systems review first. We are unsure to what extent that investment is going to carry forward with the current government. But
so they haven't committed or reaffirmed that yet?
Not in full term. So we are unsure in terms of whether that investment is going to follow through. We know some aspect of it may have been redirected to other priorities.
So some of that $300,000 has been redirected?
That could be the case, but we need to sort of get some clarity on that. We were ready to go forward with it, to follow through with the racism review, looking at the Queensland Human Rights Commission model, which was, where they had just completed their review with the Queensland Police Service, looking to the diversity and inclusion context and following that sort of model, which has a real win-win outcome. And here's where this will also help the anti-police force meet its positive duty obligations in eliminating racial discrimination.
And just on that, the positive duty obligations, can you just explain what they are, particularly because that law reform has just gone through recently, and where that sits kind of around anti-racism strategies more broadly?
Yep, sure. So I think the first thing to take note is that racism is a community safety issue, and the way in which we need to deal with racism as a community safety issue is by the government's investing into anti-racism strategies. And what the positive duty does is it provides an opportunity for organizations like the anti-police force, for example, and this came to force 2nd of January this year, to invest more into how it puts in preventative measures, so proactive measures in how it eliminates and prevents racial discrimination within the anti-police force. It provides an opportunity also to do annual reporting on how you are meeting your positive duty performance. So it's a good check and balance that can be done internally, but we as a commission are trying to work alongside and with organizations now to build their systems level check-in in relation to how they comply with positive duty obligations on racial discrimination.
Jeswynn Yogaratnam is the Northern Territory Anti-Discrimination Commissioner. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Dan.